In the previous episode, Jia found herself lost in a whirlwind of pleasure-filled thoughts as she fervently massaged Jin's back. However, Jin abruptly shattered her reverie by calling out her name, forcefully pulling her back to reality. Jia, feeling a rush of embarrassment, swiftly withdrew her hand and questioned, "What happened, Mincheol?" Jin, with hesitation in his voice, responded, "It's just that you were rubbing my back quite intensely." "Is there something on my back?" Flustered, Jia grappled with the reality of her actions, desperately searching for a plausible excuse. Thinking on her feet, she transitioned to massaging Jin's shoulders, declaring, "No, it's just that your shoulder seemed incredibly stiff." "It's like a rock, seriously." Jin, astonished, inquired, "Is it really that stiff?" Jia, attempting to salvage the situation, insisted, "Yeah, it's like a rock." Despite the awkwardness, she somehow navigated through the embarrassing moment. The situation, however, grew even more perplexing as Jia shifted to delivering a proper back massage to Jin. Suddenly, Jin remarked, "Jia, pressing with your fingernails hurts a bit." Blushing nervously, Jia laughed it off, saying, "Oh, sorry. What was I thinking, using my fingernails like that?" She switched to pressing with her thumbs, asking, "How's this instead?" Jin acknowledged, "Ah, it feels better." As Jia's face turned crimson with Jin's glasses off, she managed to convince herself that it was just a massage. 10 minutes later, Jia's hands throbbed with pain, grappling with the width and hardness of Jin's back. It dawned on her why her dad, in her childhood, had requested her to walk on his back. Abruptly, Jin broke the moment of silent relief, stating, "Jia, it must have been stiff muscles, like you said. I can move it so well now. Thank you for your hard work." Jia, delighted to see Jin content, responded, "Now that you seem to feel better, I'll head back to my room." However, Jin halted Jia, declaring, "Jia, wait. I'll also massage your shoulders." Jia insisted, "No, I'm fine. I don't really feel stiff there, so you don't have to." Yet, Jia sensed the unwavering Jin Mincheol wouldn't let a favor go unrewarded. Jin, a firm believer in the law of equivalent exchange, requested, "Hey, Jia, could you please move your hair a bit forward?" Jia complied, nervously shifting her hair to allow Jin to massage her shoulders. Anxious, she thought that, even if she was nervous, Jin wouldn't notice. As Jin gently touched Jia's shoulders, she let out a shout. Jin, bewildered, remarked, "Jia, I just touched it a bit. Does it hurt that much? You seem kind of unwell." Jia's outburst was triggered by the rapid beating of her heart when Jin touched her. She didn't want him to hear the palpitations, fearing he might sense it through his hands. Whether Jin was oblivious due to his density or intentionally pretending, Jia couldn't discern. In her panic, she began shouting and crying, exclaiming, "Jin Mincheol, that hurts. What's with you suddenly putting so much strength?" Startled, Jin eased his grip on Jia's shoulders, but she, still holding onto his hand, inadvertently collided her head with his. The impact sent her sprawling onto the bed. As she opened her eyes, Jin loomed over her, staring down from above. Jin was on top of Jia at an acute angle. Jia was so flustered and flabbergasted, wondering if this was truly the point where two lines met. The situation was incredibly awkward, and suddenly, Jia asked herself a peculiar question about what she was wearing underneath. She briefly considered if it was an odd choice, but then she remembered that when she was getting ready for work, she had deliberately chosen a good pair. Jia became irritated, questioning why she was even thinking about her attire in such a moment. She couldn't fathom why she was relieved about not wearing an odd pair, and it seemed like, at this rate, Jia didn't mind being in this situation with Jin Mincheol. She closed her eyes and made a kissing gesture with her lips. However, after 1 second, 2 seconds, and even after 3,456,789 seconds, Jin didn't make a move. Irritated and angered, Jia forcefully pushed Jin away and left his room. Jia found herself in the living room, reflecting on the recent interaction with Jin Mincheol, feeling a deep sense of embarrassment. Meanwhile, Jin was in his bedroom, also immersed in thoughts about Jia and harboring disappointment in himself. Suddenly, he lifted his head, walked up behind Jia, and called out her name. Nervously, Jia responded, "Yes, Mincheol." Startled, Jin expressed concern about Jia's sitting posture, warning her about potential back issues and citing the proverb, "A healthy mind starts from a healthy back." He advised her not to hunch her back but instead to puff out her chest a bit. Jia chuckled, attempting to adjust her posture as Jin smiled and signaled his approval of her attempt. After this brief interaction, Jin headed back to his room, mentioning that he was going to take a shower due to the heat. As Jia lay on the sofa, she pondered Jin's behavior, wondering why he had teased her by calling her name and left her excited, only to retreat without further action. Meanwhile, in the bathroom, Jin banged his hands on the wall, contemplating the foolishness of his actions. Jia lay on the sofa, reminiscing over her honeymoon photos, when Jin unexpectedly appeared in front of her. Startled, Jia quickly sat up and exclaimed, "What the, don't come out of nowhere like that, you nearly scared me to death." Jin promptly responded, "I brushed my teeth." Perplexed, Jia questioned, "What do you mean, you brushed your teeth?" Jin explained, "I ate pickles for dinner, and I know you hate pickles, so it's fine if we do it, right?" With that statement, he suddenly kissed Jia. It became clear that the reason Mincheol hadn't gotten close earlier was related to his dinner choice. Jin removed his glasses, gazed into Jia's eyes, and resumed kissing her. Slowly, he placed his hands on Jia's waist, leaving her utterly flabbergasted by Jin's unexpected and bold move. Jin gradually tightened his grip on Jia's waist, leaving her uncertain about what to do. The sudden and intense nature of the moment caught her off guard. Jia wished that if Jin was going to make such a bold move, he should have at least signaled his intentions. However, despite the unexpected turn of events, Jin had navigated the situation quite well. Jia acknowledged that even Mincheol, being a guy, had exceeded her expectations. Now, she found herself grappling with the reality of the situation. While she was aware that they would eventually reach such a point, she never anticipated it would happen so suddenly. Just as the intensity of the moment peaked, Jin's phone rang, bringing everything to a halt. Jin gazed into Jia's eyes, expressing his reluctance to let go. Jia, holding Jin's hand, softly uttered, "Mincheol." Jin began leaning towards Jia, but she playfully placed a finger on his lips and smiled, saying, "Quit moping around and go take that call." Jin answered the phone and engaged in a conversation. Jia, taking a deep breath, adjusted her shirt, and sat with a blush on her face, resembling a tomato. In the quiet of the night, Jia pondered the unprecedented occurrence of sharing a sober kiss with Jin Mincheol. Embarrassment consumed her, leading her to vent her frustration by punching her pillows. After a while, Jia managed to calm herself, only to confront a series of questions about the nature of their relationship. Were they just friends, a fake couple, or mere acquaintances bound by agreements? The uncertainty left her perplexed. Suddenly, a knock echoed on Jia's door, and Jin Mincheol inquired if he could enter. With hesitation, Jia granted permission, and Jin took a seat on his knees before her. Puzzled by Mincheol's unusual behavior, Jia speculated whether he intended to continue their intimate moment. However, Jin shattered her assumptions by revealing, "Jia, I received a call from my mother earlier, and she is coming over this weekend. Will that be alright with you?" The revelation left Jia in shock, realizing that Jin's mother was soon to visit their home. Jia pressed for clarity, urgently questioning, "My mom?" Jin responded with unwavering certainty, "No, my mom." An escalating sense of apprehension gripped Jia as the realization dawned that Jin's formidable mother was on her way. Jin elucidated, "My mom mentioned she'd visit to attend to some pressing matters this weekend." Jia, teetering on the edge of anxiety, probed further, "What affairs?" Jin, however, was equally in the dark, admitting, "I don't know, she didn't specify." The impending encounter with Jin's mother loomed heavily over Jia, casting shadows of uncertainty. Delving into her past, Jia recalled a tumultuous episode from her adolescent years, a stormy day that often befalls middle and high school students. Fueled by a disdain for the abysmal school lunches, Jia dared to defy the norms. Ignoring her friend's cautionary words about the headmaster's disciplinary measures, Jia embarked on a rebellious escapade. Scaling a wall to freedom, she stumbled upon a scene where her headmaster meted out punishment to another defiant student. Jia, caught in the act, tried to evade the consequences, but her headmaster's disciplinary measures were swift and stern. Those were times when physical punishment held a grim normalcy. In an intriguing twist, the past overlapped with the present as Jia discovered that her headmaster from yesteryears was none other than Mincheol's mother. The very figure who once disciplined her in school was now her mother-in-law, introducing an unexpected dynamic into their relationship. Jia mused on the irony of her past defiance and present alliance, realizing that life had thrown her a curveball in the form of her former disciplinarian turned family. On the weekend, the anticipation of meeting Jin's mother, Zhang Jizian, reached its zenith as Jin and Jia headed to the airport to welcome her. At 57, Zhang exuded vitality, and Jia marveled at her enduring spirit during the journey home. However, the atmosphere took a sudden turn when Zhang, with a hint of playful sarcasm, taunted Jean about the long-awaited meeting, questioning whether it was his daughter-in-law's idea. Jean, nervously stumbling over his words, offered a feeble explanation about Zhang's prior nonchalance regarding his visits. Zhang, undeterred, turned her piercing gaze toward Jia, insinuating that Mincheol might not have mustered the courage to invite her, prompting Jia into an awkward silence. The weight of the daughter-in-law designation lingered in the air, causing a momentary lag in Jia's thoughts. Zhang, not one to be easily deterred, speculated further, contemplating whether the initiative had indeed come from Jean. To her surprise, Jia dispelled the confusion, admitting, "No, you are right, it was my idea." While Zhang's assessment proved accurate, it left Jia grappling with the realization of her new role. Faced with the dilemma of addressing Zhang, Jia decided to seek guidance from Jean on the matter. However, her attempts to communicate with him went unanswered, prompting her to resort to calling out to Jean directly. The utterance of Jean Mincheol from Jia's lips raised eyebrows, inviting a doubtful query from Zhang, who couldn't help but question the nature of their address towards each other. The unfolding dynamic between the three hinted at the complexities and nuances of familial relationships, with Jia navigating the uncharted territory of being called daughter-in-law. Jia, feeling the weight of the scrutiny from Jin's mother, nervously sought clarification about the comment, asking, "I am not sure what you mean by that, mother." Zhang, playing it off casually, reassured her, "Don't worry about it, I was just asking a simple question." The atmosphere became charged, reflecting the astute instincts of the former headmaster. Zhang, known for her keen intuition both in the neighborhood and at school, continued to assert her observations, stating, "You two are too awkward to be considered a married couple." The overpowering nature of Mincheol bringing Jia along to greet them only emphasized Zhang's perception. Throughout their lives, the dynamics of Jean and Zhang's relationship had been characterized by such complexities. The acknowledgement of the non-convincing situation raised the question of whether both parties involved shared similar sentiments. Zhang mused, "Well, it's probably just my imagination. During such a romantic time for newlywed couples, you still call each other by your names." Jia, eager to dispel any notions of awkwardness, promptly responded, "No, mother, we just sometimes call each other by our names, usually." Zhang, ever perceptive, pressed further, inquiring about their usual habits. Caught in the moment, Jia realized that she consistently referred to Jean by his name. Taking a deep breath, she blurted out, "Oi." The term "oi" carried dual meanings in the Korean dictionary, and only Jia knew the significance behind choosing that particular word, adding a layer of mystery to the unfolding familial dynamics. Zhang, taken aback, inquired, "You call him oi? You guys have become a married couple, and you say oi?" Sensing the situation escalating, Jia quickly interjected, "Oi, honey, will you check your messages?" Jean, caught off guard, agreed promptly to diffuse the tension. Jia felt a wave of embarrassment for her choice of address. Jean, in response to Jia's message, suggested referring to her as mother, maintaining the formality as before. And so began the home visit of Jia's mother-in-law, with round one focusing on analyzing the interior. Zhang scrutinized the surroundings and commented, "Is this really going to be like that?" In morning dramas, the mother-in-law usually scolds their daughter-in-law for cleaning. I saw it a lot in morning dramas, so I tried imitating them just now. But still, you should pay some attention to the dust. Jia, unsure if it was a jest or a mild scolding, found herself in a perplexing situation. Round 2 commenced with food tasting. Jia inquired, "Mother, does it suit your taste?" Zhang responded, "Well, for the taste, I think some meat would be nice. The sweetness doesn't really fit my taste." Jia chuckled, "I apologize, mother. My mother hurriedly sent over some food since you were visiting, and she had no time to check the taste. I'll let her know that she should make the food less sweet next time." Zhang, hesitatingly, said, "No, I think that the slight sweetness just needs some rice, so tell Sui Onion that I enjoyed the food." The interaction added a layer of complexity to the visit, leaving Jia to navigate the intricacies of familial expectations. In round 2, Jia just barely passed. Now, round 3 started, gossiping over some afternoon tea. However, there was no gossip. Instead, there were 10 minutes of pin-drop silence. The current situation could be succinctly expressed in one word, fail. Zhang glanced at Jia for quite some time, growing increasingly suspicious. Sensing the need for a distraction, Jia shifted her attention to Jean, saying, "Oi, Jean Mincheol, I am asking this because I am really curious." She grabbed his t-shirt and continued, "Mincheol, do you ever wash this shirt?" Zhang immediately fixed intense eyes on Jia. Realizing her mistake in addressing Jin by his name and not as honey, Jia anticipated a scolding. To her surprise, Zhang remarked, "True, I am curious about that too. Every time I come over, you are always wearing that shirt, son. Do you ever change shirts?" Jin, disappointed with both of their statements, displayed his collection of identical t-shirts, filling his cupboard. Jia and Zhang were in shock, witnessing that Jin had 50 t-shirts of the same style. On that day, Jia realized something profound. In the face of an overwhelming enemy, anyone can become an ally. Looking ahead, they would fondly recall this day as stage 1 of the Red Devil's obstacle. It was an unforgettable time, absolutely teeming with fervent cheering. The World Cup, a mosaic of countless miracles, bore witness to the skyrocketing sales of a particularly iconic shirt. One might playfully jest that virtually every citizen possessed at least one of these shirts. A mere exploration of a closet's depths would likely unearth one. Jia occasionally spotted it, more as a cherished memento at this juncture. No need for inquiry when it was glaringly evident that Jin had probably impulsively ordered it in bulk during an irresistibly tempting offer. He likely found himself getting excessively thrilled, thinking, "Wow, what an absolute steal." Not too dissimilar from their honeymoon experience. Frustrated with Jin's penchant for those shirts, Jia and Zhang collectively decided to whisk him away for a much-needed shopping spree to revamp his wardrobe. Amidst the shopping escapade, Jia couldn't help but wonder why she hadn't noticed earlier that Jin, clad in those outfits, perpetually bore a striking resemblance to Shin-chan. Jia embarked on a quest to unearth clothes that would gracefully adorn Jin's physique. Simultaneously, Zhang also delved into the task, pondering over designs that appealed to her sensibilities. As Jia cast her eyes upon Zhang's selections, a wave of shock swept over her, unraveling the mystery behind Jin's questionable fashion choices. The initial culprit for his sartorial missteps was, evidently, Jin's identity as an engineer, prioritizing comfort above all else. However, the revelation continued, pointing fingers at the second culprit, none other than Jin's mother, who harbored a fondness for check patterns. The perplexity mounted in Jia's mind as she contemplated why Zhang might be drawn to check patterns. Abruptly, a store employee seized the opportunity to engage Zhang, employing tactics to elicit desire and satisfaction from the customers. Predictably, the ploy worked, leaving Zhang and Jin content with their choices. Unwilling to succumb to outdated and lackluster designs, Jia intervened. She called out to Jin, showcasing a shirt that exuded simplicity yet elegance, urging, "Hey, Mincheol, try this on." The stage was set for a potential transformation in Jin's wardrobe, guided by Jia's discerning eye. Jin paraded in the array of clothes carefully curated by Jia, leaving everyone in astonishment as he transformed into a remarkably handsome young man with a newfound sense of style. Jia, recognizing the potential allure Jin now possessed, eagerly captured the moment through a series of photographs, contemplating the positive attention he might garner with a daily wardrobe upgrade. However, amid Jia's musings, Zhang interjected, expressing her opinion on the matter. Zhang addressed Jia as daughter-in-law, suggesting that the chosen attire seemed a tad too plain for Jin's age. In her view, checkered shirts would be a more fitting choice. Jia, attempting to defend her selections, noted that Jin already had an ample collection of checkered shirts at home. The absence of the store employee, who had previously been adept at guiding decisions, did not go unnoticed by Jia. Upon closer inspection, she realized the employee was engrossed in a phone conversation. Zhang, redirecting her attention to Jin, posed a question that plunged him into a state of nervousness and flabbergastation. "Son, which side do you agree with?" Zhang's inquiry thrust Jin into a dilemma, torn between choosing the preferences of his wife and his mother. The impending decision lingered, as Jin grappled with the challenge of balancing familial loyalties and personal preferences. Nevertheless, Jin summoned the courage to express, "All that matters to me is whether or not it's comfortable. Both of the clothes I tried on were really comfortable, I think they're both okay." Jia, upon hearing this, sighed with a mixture of relief and understanding. As Jin and Zhang proceeded to pay for the selected clothes, Jia contemplated this response, acknowledging that it was a perfect answer. It seemed as if Jin had grown, displaying a newfound tact that suggested a departure from his previous decision-making style. Although Jia recognized that her desire for Jin to choose the outfit she had selected was a bit greedy, she couldn't help but feel a twinge of disappointment. However, in a surprising turn of events, Jin leaned in and whispered into Jia's ears, "Jia, I like the one you chose more." Blushing at the unexpected affirmation of her choice, Jia found it hard to believe that Jin had taken her side. Even though Jin may have said it with confidence, a hint of nervousness lingered in the aftermath of his admission. The subtle exchange added a touch of sweetness to the shopping escapade, leaving Jia with a warm and pleased feeling.